The Weekly Warp Pipe.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Weekly Warp Pipe, a podcast dedicated to retro video games, 80s and 90s toys, and all things nostalgia. This week, we're jumping in the Warp Pipe and going back and taking a look at a trilogy on the NES, fit for October. That's right, Castlevania, baby. Super excited to bring a bunch of spooky episodes to you guys this October. So we're kicking things off with one of the best franchises on the NES. We got special guest Mike Levy is going to be joining us because he loves Castlevania just as much as me and Jay does. So it's going to be a great episode, guys. Without further ado, let's get into it. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Weekly Warp Pipe. I'm RussLyman.
What's up, guys? I'm Jay, NES Addict.
And we got special guest Mike Levy's in the house.
What up? How's it going?
What's up, Mike?
Glad to have you on because we're talking Castlevania today, and I know you're a big Castlevania fan.
Who, me? No.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Castlevania.
I got my apple cider. No, what is it? It's some kind of apple cider tea with honey. So I'm ready to go.
The throat will be nice and
got my fall mug. I got my Castlevania shirt. We got some Castlevania in the background.
Love
Let's
it.
do this.
Love it.
Yeah.
Let's get the games out. So I was inspired today by both of you guys because I've seen both of you guys live stream Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest. And I was like, I need to get in on that and live stream it. So this way we all played it.
That's it.
And we can discuss how it is an awesome game and not a crap game.
It's so much better than people say.
Yeah, I mean, it was the entire reason why I started reviews on YouTube was I had seen Ego Raptor and AVGN's videos like separately.
Okay.
And just trashing Castlevania 2. And I mean, I grew up with it. I loved it. And I was like, this is dumb. Like, I need to answer this. So I started working on a review back in 2012 and it wasn't going well.
Okay.
And so I ended up starting it up in 2013 and I started doing with like Metroid instead. And didn't really know what I wanted to do as far as reviews go. But I later on did Simon's Quest and many other Castlevania reviews. And, you know, it's just nice to spotlight the series, which, you know, there's so many games in the franchise that don't get the love that they deserve. You know, there's a lot of like, there's a lot of people out there that are almost like saying, oh, well, you know, this game has never been good. And it's like, no, like if you actually paid attention to like reviews back in the day,
right.
You know, stuff like Castlevania 64, for example, got great reviews, like, you know, like pretty good reviews, at least like
right
80s.
for the time.
If you care about score, you know, they would score it like 80 out of 100, you know, that sort of thing. And even Simon's Quest, like back in the day, like people liked Simon's Quest, like people thought it was difficult and different. But, you know, the general consensus was 2 was, you know, the black sheep of the franchise.
If it suffers from anything, it's the poor translation and the hints. Other than that, I think it's good.
I mean, the thing is that they, and I mentioned this in my review of Simon's Quest, they deliberately are lying to you,
right?
Because they're cursed. And it even says so in the manual. It says, you know, the townsfolk may be lying to you, so don't take what they say with a very deep grain of salt.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
People didn't read the manual, apparently.
Well, I mean, you know, think about it. Back in the day, you know, a lot of people were just renting it. I mean, the first time I ever played any game in the franchise was 2.
Okay.
And I went over this kid Matt's house. I was probably like, I don't know, 7 or so back in like 90. I think it was like 89 or 90, something like that. So I was 6 or 7 or 8 or something. And he was like, have you played this game, Simon's Quest? And I was like, no. He's like, yeah, it's called Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest. I was like, oh, I've heard of Castlevania, but I've never played it. And he's like, dude, you haven't played this game? No. He was like, you should play it. and we sat down and we played it, and I fell in love with it. It was fantastic.
I mean, the music alone.
Oh yeah, like Bloody Tears. Like
so good.
As soon as I heard that daytime theme, Bloody Tears, that is probably my favorite video game song of all time. Like that specific version, because there's been so many versions over the years.
Oh, right. Yeah,
the only memory I have about it as a kid is just remembering the name Simon. I thought, what an odd choice for a hero's name, because I always associated it with like the Chipmunks,
Or
right?
Simon Says.
Yeah,
Alvin, Simon, Theodore.
Exactly.
Dude, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would
Simon.
say it's a fun rental game for sure, because it has a password system where you'll be able to keep your password down, and maybe, you hand in your game Monday, and then Friday rolls around, you can pick back up where you left off. Whereas if maybe you're playing Zelda, someone probably is going to erase your game by the time you rent it again.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, a lot of people didn't like passwords, especially long passwords, which Castlevania 2 did have a longer password, but I didn't really mind it. I mean, I just kept playing the game, and I had the NES Atlas. So I would open that up, and it has Castlevania 1, 2, and 3 in there with maps, detailed maps and everything. So like, that's how I learned how to beat Simon's Quest, is I just used the NES Atlas.
So you know what's interesting? The map in that is actually accurate.
Yeah.
As convoluted as it might look. In that Nintendo Power right there. It's actually accurate.
This one. Well, I was using this today, which worked out great. But I was discussing, because this isn't my issue as a kid. And when I get to page 34, it just skips to 41, and I'm missing. So I don't know what happened. Like if I maybe tore the pages out when I was a kid to make like a collage of something, or if I got this had recently and it was already missing. But I tried to look up how much this Nintendo Power is going for with Castlevania 2 on the cover, and it's like $100 and up.
I'm going to give you a little spoiler here as far as prices go for Castlevania. Castlevania is a very expensive franchise to collect for.
Yeah.
It always has been a little bit on the higher side for the most part. But yeah, it's just, especially boxes, like complete in-box games. If you're going for a Castlevania complete collection, I have the full, like those three.
These are fake.
Oh, those are fake? The boxes are fake? Oh.
So I got repro boxes.
Okay.
Just so it looks nice. I was like, I'm never going to buy these boxes because they're so expensive. But
I own every, aside from Lords of Shadow 2.
Okay.
I own every, which to me is Lords of Shadow, is not Castlevania, but I own every NTSC US Castlevania game. Not complete in box, not yet.
Okay.
I'm missing Kid Dracula box and manual, which is like impossible to find. Castlevania Legends and Dracula X and Belmont's Revenge. Those are the only boxes and manuals I'm missing.
Nice. Pretty round off set right there.
I think I have the first two.
Yeah.
The first two boxed, or just
boxed.
Okay.
When did you guys start playing the series, like back in the day?
Yeah, I mean, I can't place a date on it, but I know I remember playing.
A date, Russ.
Let's check my watch. Definitely remember playing the first one though. Whether it was at a buddy's house or just getting a rental copy, like I said. I don't know if you remember, Jay, distinctly more.
So I remember, because I completely missed out on this series as a kid, and I didn't play it till 8 years ago.
There you go.
My buddy Todd was like, dude, have you played Castlevania? And I was like, no. And he's like, you might not like it, but let's try it.
And he was like, dude, you haven't played this game?
And I put it in, and like the first level, I'm hitting the whip, and I'm like, I love this mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I become obsessed with Castlevania 1. I was obsessed with it. And like, I played it until I finally beat it. And then I remember, I think I got Simon's Quest and eventually Dracula's Curse. But I remember when I got Super Castlevania, I loved Castlevania, the original, so much that the first few times I played Super Castlevania, I was like, this is boring. This is not as good. No, it is now actually my favorite game of all time. I don't know what took me so long to like gain an appreciation for it. But I didn't like how the music was different. I didn't like how the graphics were different. I didn't like how there was some liberty state. I wanted it the exact same, just in 16-bit form, but it wasn't, obviously. Sure. But yeah, I love it. Now my love doesn't extend too far past like the 16-bit era. I played Circle of the Moon before. I didn't really care for that. Everybody and their brother tells me I should play Symphony of the Night, and I know that's how it is, like one of the best games ever. But I don't like the fact that you don't get to play as a Belmont. I guess you do if you beat the game.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you do, or you can. But the thing is they really needed to expand the legacy of the franchise beyond just the Belmonts. And they started to do that with like Castlevania Bloodlines, where you could play as Eric Lecard.
Right.
And even like, adding on like additional families, like the Morris family,
John Morris, yeah.
In Castlevania 64, the Schneider family, which really I was talking to a buddy of mine on Twitter about Castlevania 64, and he had a pretty good theory about how the Schneiders are actually just renamed Belmonts, meaning they're actually by blood Belmonts.
Okay.
But like they changed their name, when they relocated or whatever, or when they were like in hiding. So I thought that was a pretty interesting theory.
Yeah.
What do you think? So like Castlevania 1, what do you think people were drawn to it? Like, because it was so different from Mario, Yeah,
I mean, ultimately the thing that really stands out about Castlevania 1 is they really hit home with the horror aspects of like a movie,
right?
There's literally like for the entire franchise of the first 3 games, rather, there's literally like film rolls
on the side
in the intro, on the sides or on the top. So there's
almost mimicking like maybe the
Hammer films.
I was going to say like the horror.
It's the franchise has always kind of been like a B movie take on Hammer horror films and Universal horror, like monster movies. Right.
Especially you're fighting the bosses and you're seeing like, okay, here's like Frankenstein's monster.
Right.
Mummies.
The mummy, Wolfman, Dracula, and then you've got some other
Medusa.
inspiration from like Clash of the Titans, like the Medusa, that sort of thing.
Yes.
There's a lot of really cool influences. And even at the end, when you beat the game, all the credits for the names of the people that played,
like spoofs,
or the people that made the game.
Right.
Like Christopher B., which is a riff on Christopher Lee. The composer, or one half of the composer team, Kinyo Yamashita, her nickname in there is James Banana. So it's really cool to kind of see that aspect of it. But the whole reason, or at least what I believe is the whole reason why that happened, is there was a lot of headhunting going on in the Japanese video game industry. So
Gotcha.
Names weren't really being credited for a long time. So that's why the names of these game creators were like kind of mysteries, thinking back to like, Hip Tanaka, or what's one of the ones from like Mega Man. There's a bunch of names, of pseudonyms
where they couldn't use their actual name.
Right. Because the companies were like, we don't want you to, we don't want to have our talent poached.
Right.
So pretty interesting.
Excellent. Yeah. I figured, seeing that, like the horror aspect maybe drew on a different crowd, maybe that were kind of into video games, or they're like, I saw Mario, wasn't really into it. But then they're like, okay, what's this like Castlevania all about? Like vampire on the cover, you're looking at it and it's got like a whip and everything like that, manly man. And it's like, all right, that draws me in, again, maybe if it's at the rental store and you wanted to rent it for a weekend. I have a funny story here. Let's see. I posted on Facebook, and I had a bunch of people leave some comments. Let's see if I could pull it up.
That art, by the way, is very much inspired by like Frank Frazetta, like all his art from like, that when he did like all the sword and sorcery type covers and movie posters.
Isn't it pretty much almost identical to like one of his?
Yeah, like near identical. Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
I love the colors in that picture. It's amazing.
Right.
The greens and stuff.
I mean, Castlevania in general has just like these amazing colors in the first 3 games. I mean, yeah, outside the first 3 games for sure as well, but there's something about those first 3 games where the colors just really stand out and really pop, and the atmosphere specifically in 2 really drew me to it. I mean, it felt like a fall day, as you're going through the countryside, you see the leaves changing color, as you're moving throughout the areas, very interesting and different color schemes that they were using in Simon's Quest.
Aldo's states here, he says, Simon's Quest was one of my first NES that my parents bought me and my older brother. Funny thing is, my dad scooped it up solely because he thought Simon on the cover was actually He-Man. My brother was a huge fan of Masters of the Universe, but hey, we got a fantastic game out of his mistakes, so it all worked out.
Nice.
I thought that was kind of funny. It was like, okay, you got some muscular, guy on the cover. Let's see, Simon's Quest right there.
The Simon's Quest art, interestingly enough, is literally a ripoff of it's like a D&D spinoff or whatever called Ravenloft.
Yeah,
and that cover is basically taken almost right from.
Like the Dracula is almost identical, right?
Yeah. The Dracula specifically in like I think the castle.
Yeah.
Area. Yeah.
And I love how this whip makes it too.
Yeah.
I thought that was clever.
Yeah, that's pretty smart.
I never noticed that.
Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Attention to detail.
The Japanese art is pretty much the same, if I recall. And then the art is very different for 3, though. The box art is totally different.
In Japan.
Yeah, I mean, like, I personally prefer the box art for Castlevania 3 for the NES version.
Yeah.
Yeah, that right there. Yeah,
that's sick.
Tom Dubois did the art on
that.
Well,
and they also went like, because both 1 and 2 have these green and blues in it, and 3
they went with the orange and black.
Yeah, like
very Halloween-y.
Like, yeah,
right.
Which is interesting because the colors in the game themselves is like a lot of orange and purple. There's a lot more like orange and purple in that versus like Castlevania 2, which was more like greens and blacks and oranges and reds and like a lot of like really striking deep colors, not a lot of purple in there.
Yeah.
Why do you think they made Simon Belmont look so different in the second game? He's almost like unrecognizable from the first.
Yeah, he looks like he has like black hair in the second game. I'm not sure as to why they did that, truth be told. I've always wanted to know, and that's a good question. I should have asked when I met Koji Igarashi. I mean, I know he didn't make Simon's Quest, but like I should have asked him that.
Because it took me a little while to get used to it. I'm like, I like this game, but he looks a little weird.
See, right. Picture my perspective, though. I started with 2 and then I went to 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working backwards. So I was like, why does he have blonde hair?
Right.
Like for me, it was different. I always preferred the red armor.
Yeah.
In fact, what's really cool about Castlevania 64 is there's a throwback armor that you can get in that game where you can unlock it if you pick up one of the special crystals, and it unlocks. Reinhard Schneider ends up wearing a variant of Simon's costume.
Nice.
So it's got the red armor. It's pretty cool.
It's a fun little throwback there.
Yeah.
My knowledge of the 64 games is nil, other than what I've seen AVGN talk about it.
Right. I never played them either.
I'm going to be reviewing both games this coming Halloween fall time period. I don't know if I'm going to get what's it called, Legacy of Darkness out in time, but I think I'll be able to do Castlevania 64.
I actually used to have Dracula X on I sold it to a buddy to pick up some more NES games that were a bit rare and harder to come by. But I sold it right before the pandemic.
Okay.
And now it's like the price range for that game is so out of the question. I can't even afford to get it anymore.
I have it loose and the label is damaged, and I have a replacement label, and I just don't have the heart to rip it off.
I had an amazing copy. Dang you, back in the day, gamer.
You could always get a like a donor shell.
Yeah.
To put the replacement label on.
I guess. I don't know. I'm so weird when it comes to that. Like, I have repro boxes for Legends and Dracula X, and every time I look at them, it's like, man, it's not the same.
You're a purist like me.
I am only because I have a couple repro boxes, and I collect repros, if it's something that's interesting to me, or if it's a game that only came out in Japan, and I don't have the means to. I don't care. Even Saturn stuff, I have a bunch of repro Saturn games, and it's like, I'm not going to spend $500, $600, $700. I'll just get a repro. Like,
right?
Why not?
Right.
But
still
like with Castlevania
game.
stuff specifically, like, yeah, I would dump half my collection just to get like all Castlevania stuff. So
nice. Yeah, I just recently played through Castlevania 3.
You beat it?
Yeah, but
bravo.
I've
never beaten it.
So I have a fun little emulator handheld thing. So I loaded it onto that so I could kind of play it on the go.
That's cool.
And I did use some save states at certain points through and out. But yeah, I don't know if you get different endings depending which character you choose to team up with.
It does. It tells you a different little story.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've only beat it with Sypha and Simon, and I've never beat it with the little pirate guy, Grant.
Oh, you mean Trevor?
Trevor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. And I've never beat it with Alucard, only Sypha.
Yeah, I beat it with Alucard.
I used to think it was Simon too. Like I remember when I did finally play 3, I was like, oh, it's Simon. Then I was like, wait, no, it's Trevor.
It's Trevor, right?
Which is funny because in Japan his name is Ralph.
Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah. In Japan, Trevor's name is Ralph.
Trevor sounds cooler.
Yeah. Well, I think part of the reason for that, at least, is Trevor's name is Trevor R. Belmont.
Oh, so maybe it's Ralph.
The R is Ralph, right? So I think in Japan they called him Ralph Belmont.
That's funny.
That's what it is.
The more you know.
It is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was awesome with 3 how they gave you different paths to choose, people to team up with. They really took a 360 of like, okay, we tried Simon's Quest doing this format. Let's kind of go back to 1, but expand on that and kind of give you some more places to explore. So you can play through it multiple times. You're like, okay, I'm going to take the lower path this time or whatever.
There's one really cool boss battle in Castlevania 3 where it's like a doppelganger fight, and you kind of fight yourself.
Yes.
And one of the strategies is to consistently change, so that way while the guy's changing, you can whip him.
Yes.
And then change him again. So that's like a way to cheese the game out.
That idea of fighting your own doppelganger is repeated in Symphony of the Night as well. So Alucard ends up fighting himself.
Nice.
There is kind of a nice throwback to 3. Yeah, it's 3 is really good. It's just, oh man, it's hard. I can't get. I can get to the ship, like the ghost ship area. I can get there, and that's pretty much as far as I think I've ever gotten. Maybe I got to the next stage after that. I can't remember, but actually, in the Japanese version, which is on the Famicom, the game is easier. So we actually got the harder version of the game.
Blast.
And I don't know why, but yeah, the enemies take less hits. There's a couple sprites that are slightly different. And of course, the music is different. It's one of very few games, if not maybe 2 games, I think, or 3. I don't know. I can't remember how many games have the VRC6 chip in it, but it's got a special chip in the cartridge.
Okay.
That basically changes up the audio. It adds another like layer of audio on there, so you get more enriched music than you do on the NES. Of course, that's debatable though. Like, some people prefer the NES tracks. Some people prefer the Famicom versions, but and then 2 got worse music on the Famicom disk system.
Weird.
Oh,
At least in my opinion. It's very twangy and different, and so yeah, they got a battery function because you could save on the Famicom disk system, but they got worse music. So I think we kind of won out.
I'll have to pick it up to see what the difference is.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's a shame they didn't release that version in that recent the Castlevania Anniversary Collection.
Yeah,
it's a shame that they didn't release Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, the Famicom disc system version, which is called Dracula 2 Noroi no Fuin. That's the Japanese name. Yeah,
the more you know.
Yeah.
Can you beat Castlevania 1?
Yeah, I've beaten it a few times.
Then I think you should use the password system, and I think you should totally try to get through 3 once. You can do it. If you can beat the first one, you can beat the third one.
The way I was planning on doing it was I did this with Ninja Gaiden 2 because Ninja Gaiden 2 was always one of my favorite games growing up, but I could never beat the final boss. So what I ended up doing was I got the game on the 3DS, and I would just save state right before the final boss, and I just kept playing him over and over and over again until I could beat him without dying.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would beat the game. So once I got accustomed to it, I could beat it no problem. So I'm probably going to do the same thing with 3.
Yeah, I've recently streamed all 3 on TikTok because I play Castlevania 1 probably once, twice a month.
You could stream on TikTok?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's wild.
And I beat 3.
It's all vertical though.
I beat yeah. I don't know how anybody watches. I wouldn't want to watch, but people watch me for some reason. And so then I beat 1, and then I beat 3, and then I was like, all right, well, I got to beat Simon's Quest. So I beat that last weekend.
Oh, sorry, my cat just walked out.
Hey, kitty.
Come on,
Guest.
Zelda. Special guest, Zelda.
Yeah, I mean, definitely I can get up to the Grim Reaper, no problem.
My cup holder.
But then it's like if you lose holy water, it's so hard to defeat the Grim Reaper. It's like
it's impossible.
No. Wait, on which game?
Castlevania 1.
Or no, if you use holy water, it's easy.
Right. If you use holy water, it's easy. If you die and lose it or whatever, and then you're stuck with the boomerangs.
So listen to this. When I was on that stream, that happened to me. I screwed up and started the holy water too late when his sickles came out.
Okay.
And I was telling everybody on stream, I was like, man, guys, I was like, I haven't beat this game with the crosses in probably 5 years. I was like, so this is going to be a while. And I did it next try, and I was like, no way.
I've always beaten for the first game, death with the crosses.
That's way more skilled.
I would get the triple
shot,
the triple shot, and I would just layer those, and just keep attacking. So, but Dracula himself was I wouldn't say he's harder. It's just if you don't know what to do,
right? It takes a while to figure it out.
Yeah, because you have to get the holy water to stop him. At the end of, I think it's the holy water, if I recall. It's the power up all the way at the end of the room.
Right.
And so you run over and you whip that, and that gives you what you need in order to beat him. So you could freeze the demon portion.
That's the blue portion. You definitely need the holy water to kind of slow him down.
Yeah. Also, fun fact: when Dracula dies, he explodes.
Okay.
And if you look really carefully, the items that are coming out of him, those are the items that you later have to find in Simon's Quest.
What?
Yeah.
They
planned it way ahead.
Wow.
In that
now
aspect.
I need to play it again. Dang it.
Yeah. If you go and check it out,
that's pretty cool.
I think I did a video on it. I did a top 5 things you might not know about Castlevania, because you can't do top 5 things you don't know about Castlevania, because you get a sea of people coming in well, I know that, so you have to put things you might not know.
There you go. It's all about how you present it.
The wording.
You gotta avoid the trolls as much as you can.
Yeah. And then I was gonna say I dive into it's such a great franchise. I enjoyed the next generation, if you will, games that came out with Curse of the Moon.
Bloodstain.
Yeah, Circle of the Moon. Sorry, Circle of the Moon.
Curse of the Moon's
Bloodstained.
Bloodstained, right?
Oh, the
Right.
Bloodstained. Yeah,
Bloodstained Saga.
I
Spiritual.
need to get the
successor.
second version of that. I don't have part 2 of that.
It's hard. I'm stuck on the last boss or the last level on that one, and I just can't beat it. It's a fun game though. Both games.
The first one, I was hung up on somebody for a while. I can't remember who.
But they basically pulled from Castlevania 3 with you get helpers. And it's a good time, and the graphics are just set up just like that. I haven't played the other one that's more Symphony of the Night version. That's just Bloodstain.
Well, Ritual of the Night.
Ritual of the Night.
Yeah,
right.
That's the one that's very Symphony of the Night ish.
Even with it's saying it.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that, Jay, with his mug, Castlevania
that's
mug.
Sick.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
A buddy of mine bought me that. And check it out. The back has the back of the game.
Oh, there you go.
That's
the full box art.
way cool.
Yeah.
Now you need ice cubes that are the cartridge.
There you go.
Yeah.
All 3.
That's cool.
Castlevania. Trying to think what else we could dive into.
I was going to ask, what's your preference between the 16-bit versions? Would it be Super Castlevania 4 or Bloodlines or maybe
That's right.
Dracula X?
So all 3 are good games. I would say Dracula X is very different than the other 2. All 3 games have their own flavor and style.
Mm-hmm.
Super Castlevania 4 is probably my second favorite Castlevania game. It's just, I know it's easier, but man, it is so much fun to play through. I'll play through that any day of the week. It's great. Fantastic music, great game, lot of fun, and just very memorable.
Oh yeah.
And I remember reading the Nintendo Powers before they, and just like being mesmerized by the cover art and everything.
Screenshots, and you're like, when's it coming?
It was awesome. It was so incredible. So I would say for me personally, Super Castlevania 4 is probably the better of the 3.
That's my favorite
16-bit titles. And I mean, technically you could probably throw Rondo of Blood in there if you're talking 16-bit.
Yeah.
So I think Rondo is probably, I don't know as far as that goes, like creation game wise, like, the critics would probably say Rondo, but me personally, I think Super Castlevania 4 is the better of all of them. But Bloodlines is great. Bloodlines is up there too. It's really, really good.
That's one I haven't beat yet, but hopefully one day.
It's pretty tough. It's definitely a challenge. Konami pulled out all the stops for that one. What's interesting is that, and this is another thing I talked about in that video that I was mentioning. We could have gotten more NES games for Castlevania.
Okay.
And you could blame the Turtles for that. The Ninja Turtles was such a hot property.
Okay.
That Konami had. They were like, we just have to keep working on Turtles games. And that was a part of the reason why what's the developer? Treasure. It's one of the reasons why Treasure was formed is because they were just sick of making Turtles games and games like, sequel after sequel after sequel. They were like, hey, we want to make Gunstar Heroes. We want to make this new game or whatever. And they were like, oh, sorry. So they left.
Dang Turtles.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, hey, in retrospect, we got those Turtles games, so it's not all bad.
Right.
But, right. To like think that we could have had Castlevania, I don't know, 4 or like a 3.5 or something like that on the NES is like mind blowing.
Like it could have been, I could have seen them going back to a Simon's Quest style. So
yeah.
So we have 1 and 3 as more linear, and 2 and 4 more exploring.
Well, that's the thing is Simon's Quest really is the blueprints to Symphony of the Night. So, and all these people that are like, oh, well, Symphony of the Night is totally 100% Zelda or is Metroid.
Right.
It's not. It's Zelda, according to the creator himself, Koji Igarashi. He said he was inspired by Zelda.
So it's a Zeldavania game.
That's the thing. You're technically needing to call it a Zeldavania. But I mean, listen, you start bringing this up to people and they get all upset. It's like, I don't know. I'm not a fan of the term Metroidvania personally. I think it's dumb, but that's just me. if you're going to call it anything, it's a non-linear action game.
There you go.
Is it a mouthful? Sure. But nobody walks
sound
around
as
now. Well, nobody walks around now saying Doom clone anymore. You know what I mean? It's like it's a pop culture term.
Oh, okay. So any first person shooter, you're like,
Yeah, like
Doom clone.
Yeah, it's a Doom clone.
Halo is such a Doom clone.
Yeah, like imagine calling like I don't know, like name a first person shooter
Halo.
That's not Doom. Halo. Yeah, imagine calling Halo a Doom clone. Like no. So
just bring it back to Simon's Quest again. I was streaming it this week, and it felt good to go back to that and have fun exploring using the Nintendo Power. Almost was like retro with that. But I beat a couple of the bosses. Like you could totally walk by Death, Grim Reaper there, and not fight him at all. But I did fight him, and you get like special dagger, and then I was fighting what's the mask, the teary-eye mask?
That's Carmilla's mask.
Carmilla's mask,
Vampira.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the story on that one is Carmilla is based on a book called Carmilla.
Okay.
And it's by an author named Sheridan Le Fanu, I believe. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. But that is essentially like female Dracula in a way.
Okay.
In a lot of ways. Not related, of course, or anything like that, but she would bathe in virgin girl's blood.
Oh yes, I heard
to retain her youthfulness.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, of course, yeah. But what's interesting about that, because it's based on the real life Countess Elizabeth Bathory, who was rumored to bathe in virgin blood. So that's kind of what it was based on.
Gotcha.
But Carmilla, was a vampire, and she would seek out women at like balls.
Okay.
Like, they would have like balls, events or whatever, and these costume balls. And so she would wear a mask that would cover her face so they couldn't see that she was a vampire. So that's where Carmilla's mask comes from.
Gotcha.
I see.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's so great, that they pull from all these like real life stories and back lore and everything. I think that's why so many people got drawn into the Castlevania franchise.
Bram Stoker's book is literally part of the canon, technically.
Okay.
Which gets really kind of hairy when you're talking about Lament of Innocence, the supposed origin story for the franchise, because Dracula was a character named like Matthias, so it never really I never really could get on board with it personally, but Lament's still a pretty fun game.
Did you guys love the animated series on Netflix?
Yeah, I did.
Oh yeah,
personally.
Yeah, really enjoyed
I thought
it.
it was good. There were problems with it for sure. There were certain characters that weren't anything like really their game counterparts. Which I understand that when you're making a show like that, you've got to take some liberties with it. And in a lot of ways, I think they kind of improved certain characters and kind of gave them life. Like I think Isaac was great.
Yeah, Isaac was cool.
Well, Isaac was really cool. And
Sypho was cool.
Well, Isaac in the game is just like this, stereotypical like goth baddie. You know what I mean? Like this like pretty boy bad guy, goth, red hair or whatever. Like he just, it was very like, okay, yeah, another goth bad boy, whereas Isaac really had a pretty interesting backstory and lore behind him. But I thought they did an okay job. I'm not a fan of the writer Warren Ellis overall. He's not a good person, and
I see.
Yeah, but like aside from that, like I think they did the best they could with what they had and who they were working with. But I think season 3 is probably the weakest of the seasons. I thought 4 was pretty good. I didn't get why he had to fight death at the end, but it just didn't make any sense to me. But man, the fight scenes were killer.
They
Those
were
are great. And there's a lot of cool like lore and there's a lot of like little nods to the franchise overall that you end up finding, especially when they go to the Belmont kind of like library.
That was cool. Right. That was really cool.
His childhood home. There's like so many like Easter eggs in there. It was crazy.
I think they should have brought the music in a little sooner.
Agreed. That part with man, I recently rewatched the first 2 seasons, and that scene in season 2 where Bloody Tear starts playing is just like, oh,
finally.
So that whole scene is epic. It's like so good. And I agree. I wish that they had brought more of the game's music into the franchise, because music is such an important part of Castlevania.
Even if it was subtle, kind of like in Castlevania 4. Like in the cutscenes and stuff.
Sure. Well, yeah, 4 was interesting because even though it took like maybe 2 songs from older games, 2 or 3 songs from older games, like it's an entirely brand new soundtrack that's all like, it's got a lot of wacky inspirations from like acid jazz and you know, a lot of funk and just like you know.
But it had some really rad tunes.
Yeah, orchestral. I mean, you know, all the music in Castlevania is based on like Baroque era classical music, but altered so that it's you know, more dance and rock appropriated. Right. So it's pretty cool to hear that kind of music in this franchise. But yeah, Castlevania 64 and Legacy of Darkness went with like a much more like ambient kind of vibe.
Right.
I almost would even call those 2 games like the Resident Evils of of the franchise.
Makes sense.
There's a lot of vibes from Resident Evil that I get.
We'll look forward to your review.
Yes, indeed.
Indeed.
If people want to find what you do, Mike, where can they look?
Man, I would just say type in dongled in YouTube.
That's his YouTube name.
youtube.com/dongled. You could also just type in, dude, you haven't played this game. Or
that's a series that you do all the reviews.
Yeah. Or Castlevania. You know, I'm probably, you know, by this point, because I've been shifting my channel slowly to be like a dedicated like Castlevania.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
So that's the plan is you know, is to convert things into that and then do like other videos on the side sort of thing. So
nice. And then you also have a podcast that you're on.
Yeah. I do a VGM podcast, so video game music podcast, with my buddy Justin, who I've been friends with for, you know, a pretty long time now. And so it's styled like a radio show. Every episode, we do monthly episodes right now, but we were doing every other week. And so we're about to hit next year, episode 100, 5 years.
Nice.
And we have different themes every, all the time. We bring in composers, we bring in YouTubers, we bring in musicians, all different kinds of guests to talk about, you know, bands, all sorts of stuff like that. And so that's XVGM Radio. You can get it at xvgmradio.com, or just search for any video game music podcast. You know, you search for it in iTunes or Spotify.
Right. Spotify.
We're on it all. So yeah, just XVGM Radio, one word, and you'll find us. So
sweet.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, to do the podcast. We're on episode 25, so we're a quarter of the way.
I was just about to ask if we were at 25 yet.
Yeah, we hit 25, so we're excited. Yeah, we're keeping this going weekly. Right. Seems to be working out with me and Jay here. Jay, people want to find other stuff you do. Where can we find you?
So NES Addict on YouTube, obviously. Instagram, I post stuff here and there. TikTok is my main thing right now because it's going better than anything I've ever done before. So it's also NES Addict. And on occasion I stream on Whatnot, even though that might not be a thing much longer.
Excellent. And then, if you guys want to check me out, it's just RussLyman on YouTube. I'm on TikTok as well, Instagram. All the fun stuff there. RussLyman. That's the easiest way to remember it. Yeah, I put as one of my hashtags, in case people can't find it, I put Russ, LIE, MAN, like lie man, in case they
Okay.
can't spell it. So that often comes up in tag.
That's
Right.
funny.
But yeah, RussLyman.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, hey, you said appreciate you coming on the podcast, chatting with us.
Yeah. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. It's an honor. And anytime you want to talk anything, but specifically Castlevania, hit me up.
Heck yeah.
Nice, will do. As always, guys, I'm RussLyman. Keep your world fun bit by bit.
Have a great weekend, guys.
Peace.